All right, Zamani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi now joins us in studio to talk to us about several issues affecting this country. It's just 2 days to Christmas and just a few days for the year to end. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on KTN Prime.
Thank you, Ken.
Let's begin this discussion from what's happening in the country currently. And this is the doctors and nurses strike and the medics and clinical officers. This is very disturbing. Deputy President William Ruto says it's a shouting match between the government and the medics. And he says it's not only unhealthy for the nation, but also dangerous for this nation. You have been observing from the sidelines. I know you have spoken about it, but from where you are, how would you have dealt with this challenge?
I mean, first of all, it is really sad that we are in this state of affairs because the country, like many other countries, is reeling from the effects of the pandemic. And the medics have been raising issues from time to time about their working conditions, about the remuneration, about their insurance covers, and so forth. So it is an issue that has been with us. And I think at this point in time, what is important is serious and genuine dialogue. Between the government, the county government,
okay,
and also
national government.
Yes, there's national government, yes, and then there's the county governments, because some aspects of health are also devolved.
Okay. Why do you say serious and genuine? Do you have a sense that it's never been serious? It's not genuine?
Yeah, yes, it doesn't look like they're sitting to find common ground. You can see threats are being issued. Ultimatums are being issued. And on this one, one would not hesitate to show sympathy with the medical fraternity, because they have been raising concerns. And apart from this, there are some issues that remain unresolved. For instance, the situation around the KEMSA saga, because all this is within that sector.
Okay.
Now, if you're telling the medics that you are not able to resolve some of their issues now, I think it would be good for them to see that also those who have occasioned some pain,
okay,
are also being dealt with. But this is missing.
The same medics that the Cabinet Secretary for Health is accusing of shifting goalposts every time they're near solution.
I think maybe somebody somewhere is not telling us the truth. Remember, these doctors have been on the front line for some time. They have raised concerns. And I think you can narrow down this to a few areas. For instance, the risk allowance that is supposed to be paid, okay, the disparity. They're looking for some harmonization. Okay, so that, say, the other paramedical staff are earning something like 3,850. And the doctors are earning about 20,000. So they're calling for some measure of harmonization because the disparity is too big.
Okay.
Of course, the doctors also have some of their concerns. Now, when you talk about the insurance cover and so forth, one needs to establish which county government has taken the group life arrangement and which one has not. Because some of these staff, the medical staffs in the counties, are working under the umbrella of their counties.
The county government. Okay.
So somewhere along the line, we need to establish the facts. Which county government, for instance, has not subscribed to the insurance cover that is required by the medics in that particular area?
Okay. There's a lot of contention on that. But aside from that, just the final question on the health crisis. This time, don't you think it's the worst time ever to go on strike? I know you sympathize with them, but don't you think it's the worst time ever?
Yes, it is the worst time. Frankly speaking, when you're talking of essential services, like medicine and what it entails, really we should be working to make sure that they never go on strike.
Okay.
All right? So it is indeed a terrible time. But let us be honest. They have been raising concerns
for quite a while.
Quite a while.
All right. That's taken notice of. Finance Minister, 1993 to 1997, perhaps one of the youngest, if not the youngest. You have seen the situation, what's happening in our country. There's huge debt. You've seen the economy slam. Now, this evening, the president has reversed all the cushions that were put in place to ensure that at least Kenyans are comfortable together with the global community during the health pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. He has reversed it. And from January, we are back to what it used to be. Do you think it's time that happens? The reason notwithstanding that we need to spur the economy.
Well, they have no option. They had no option. There's no alternative way out. And I'll tell you why. And indeed, if there's a job in town that you would dread right at this point in time, is to be the Treasury Cabinet Secretary. It is a very, very awkward situation, a job at this point in time. But let's say why do they have no alternative? They have no alternative because the country cannot just generate sufficient revenues.
Okay.
Okay? Already, the economy was reeling backwards. You must remember that. So COVID merely accelerated the crisis. And one of the things that we have talked about, and I talked about, and many other Kenyans did talk about, is this thing that is the massive debt that is on our hands. All right? It is huge. And one of the things that the Treasury should have done is, as they increase the taxes, reverting to what it was before the COVID, there should have been some corresponding message on where they're cutting costs.
Which never works because we've had austerity for a long time.
They should have come out with also some very clear measures that they are going to suspend certain projects.
Major projects?
Yes.
Infrastructure projects?
If they have started. If it is contracted and it's ongoing, that's a different matter.
What if it's not financed by?
Those are the issues. Because this pressure that the Minister for Finance is facing is because there was a mismatch, a very serious mismatch on the commitments that they made, that they wanted to do the following things within a very short time frame. Yet, the revenue stream could not match that.
Okay.
Now, they have no option because even the international community at this point in time does not have extra cash to throw around.
Yes.
COVID has hit the entire globe.
But not meeting your revenue projection, yearly revenue projection, is not a new thing to this country. I don't remember a single year that we met that. So there's a deficit, yes.
We used to meet it.
What year was that?
Even during the Kibaki time it was met. Even in the earlier times of the Uhuru Jubilee government, they were meeting it. But it's when they went overdrive, the commitments they were making, how many dams they wanted to put together, how many infrastructure capital projects they wanted to have within a very short time frame, how many stadia they wanted to put together. So all these were coming. It was a race against time.
Okay.
Because they had made so many
commitments that they couldn't match the resources.
Now, that is where it started going sour.
Okay. You have ambitions of being president in this country. Something happens in 2022, Musalia Mudavadi is the next president of the country. Are you worried about the kind of a country you'll inherit from President Uhuru Kenyatta in terms of the economy?
Of course I am.
How would you sort it out?
My friend, there are a lot of things that you'd have to do. First of all, let's get Kenyans to understand that this 8.4 trillion debt is a heavy burden. That debt must be rescheduled. It must be restructured.
We must renegotiate with the country.
We have to.
Okay.
All right? There are no two ways about it. Because that is the only way you will defer certain payments and certain installments to release sufficient cash into the economy to spark growth. We will have to deal more aggressively with the corruption and the wastage. We must shift our economy from a consumer-based economy to a productive economy.
Okay.
We are doing more in terms of consumption at this stage and very little in terms of wealth creation, job creation. So the policies must be focused to reorient our expenditure programs, our public expenditure programs, to what I'm talking about.
I just want to pick one of your solutions, renegotiating the debts we have. To some people, that's postponing the problem. I know it leaves a little with you in your hands for the time being, but it's postponing an imminent problem.
You see, why do you postpone it? It's renegotiating is getting some latitude so that the pressure is less. And I speak because I renegotiated Kenya's debt when I was Minister for Finance. I rescheduled and renegotiated and restructured some.
Does it go down in terms of...
you deal with, you negotiate in many ways. There's the interest rate that has to be written off. The penalties must be written off and so forth, because there are issues that are going to arise.
Yes.
Now, once you do that, you start getting relief. And if you can then spur expansion, growth, positive growth in your economy, then you get more resources.
Okay.
Right now, we are shrunk. Our economy has been shrinking. And that is why the pressure is mounting that even retrenchment may be revisited on us again.
Okay. The last time you held a job in this country was perhaps during retired President Kibaki's government. You have been the finance minister, you have been the vice president, you have been also the deputy prime minister of this country. What would you put on the table tonight and say, because of what I've done in those three key positions, because I know local government, you've held so many positions, but those three are key: finance, vice president, and deputy prime minister. What would you tonight put on the table and tell Kenyans, because of this, I'm suitable?
Well, if you look at the portfolio one after the other, I think I would say my credentials are stronger within the economic realm, because I was able to pull Kenya out of a very serious crisis when I was Minister for Finance. There was no foreign exchange. The country was broke. The international community had fled from our realm. And we had to negotiate very hard to bring Kenya back onto what you'd call reasonable economic growth. That is one. I introduced a lot of issues in this country, opening up the economy when I was Minister for Finance, things that had stagnated, people were scared of moving. What you call liberalization and opening up of the markets were driven primarily during my tenure as Minister for Finance. But beyond that, in areas like local government, you may want to remember that I was actually the Minister for Local Government that spearheaded the legislation that has now put in devolution.
Yes.
I appointed the task force. We worked very closely with other colleagues, and I was able to deliver the laws around devolution on schedule. That was one. But apart from that, wherever I have been, whether it is in the Ministry of Agriculture, I've always looked for that reform agenda.
Okay. That notwithstanding, also during your reign as a finance minister, there were issues with Goldenberg, but we'll not go into that because it's something you have explained. But the reason why I bring this up is because you are seen mostly as a candidate, a compromise, let me say a compromise candidate. The existing leaders, even Kenyans at large, feel you are really suited to run for president, but yet you seem to be playing all the time second fiddle. You look like the supporting character in this cast for presidency. Is there a time that will come that Musalia Mudavadi will straight and strong go for this without necessarily supporting, being a supporting cast?
By the way, I stood for presidency in 2013.
You did, but we know what happened in 2013.
So let's agree that if it means that it's time to go for it, I would go for it.
Yes, but you know what happened in 2013?
You asked, would I be going for it?
Yes.
And I'm telling you, yes, I'll go for it. And I told you I've gone for it before in 2013.
Yes.
I did not succeed, but I went for it. All right? So there's some kind of dichotomy, some contradiction that we see in our society. Sometimes you listen to the political commentary and they say, Mr. So-and-so is not a team player. He wants to work alone. He doesn't want Now, when you have shown that you can also be a team player, now they turn it around and they say, he can only be a team player, but he cannot lead. Now, I want to make it clear that I can do both. I've shown that I can be a team player, but at the same time, I've also shown
that you can run,
that I can run and I can also lead.
Okay. The last time you were in government,
yes,
it's 10 years ago. If it doesn't happen, we give you another 5. Right now, I would say Musalia Mudavadi is in the cold. It will be Musalia Mudavadi in the freezer.
I think let us cross the bridge when we get there.
Okay. Yeah. President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, we know what happened in 2013. They betrayed you. NASA, you joined, after 2013, you joined NASA again, and you saw what happened with political parties funding between the NASA coalition partners. And my interest here is, in the face of political realignments, especially at this particular time, would you still think of working with someone, crossing that bridge when we get there, but would you still consider working with someone at an opportune moment on a joint presidential ticket, or you'd want to go it alone as Musalia Mudavadi?
You know, politics is also pragmatic. You have to be pragmatic as you move along. I have declared my interest in the presidency. My party, ANC, has indeed endorsed me for that particular position. And I'm not about to waver on that particular issue. But going forward, just the way we know that this country will be a country where formations can change, going to the elections, we must be alive to the fact that along the way, partnerships would play a major role.
Okay. We have seen you have nominated a candidate for the by-election.
In Matungu.
In Matungu.
Yeah. Yes.
And a lot of people think this is so undemocratic. You should have let them fight it out. You are playing the way some of your teammates have played before. Why didn't you just allow a democratic process to go on in Matungu?
My friend, the time frames, if you look at the Gazette notices that were being issued by the IEBC, then you are working within a COVID environment. And then, remember, this is the season that people have taken a break. It is not so easy to say that you can have the kind of primaries that we would have in normal circumstances. And in any case, there's nothing unconstitutional
about nominating
a candidate directly. We are not the first party to do it, and we are not the last party to do it.
But doesn't the people who are talking about it,
the circumstances that are prevailing, our election board was tasked with this and said, can you look at this situation? Are you in a position to hold primaries? If you do...
So it was considered?
It was considered. And let's also face it, in some of these primaries that come through, an assessment is also done, and our own election board had an opportunity to do what you might call a very quick assessment of the situation in Matungu. And they came back with the conclusion that the most formidable candidate who is really set to deliver that seat for ANC. Remember, the outgoing MP was an ANC MP, is Peter Oscar Nabulindo.
Okay.
And we have assessed it, he's strong, and we believe he's going to win.
All right. Away from that, I'd like to talk about devolution at length, but I'll ask a question. We have a minute or two before we take a break. You are the local government minister, you mentioned it before, and you're having assessed how devolution has worked and looking at what's happening currently, even in terms of Nairobi County. Do you see any gaps that we might have plugged at the beginning?
Yes, there are gaps there. First of all, we must acknowledge that choices matter. You know, in whatever we do, the leadership that we put in place, we must start reflecting seriously about it. And this is what is visiting the residents of Nairobi was their lackluster approach.
Yes.
when it came to making a decision as to who should be their governor.
Yes.
So they're reaping the consequences of their choices. All right? So we have got to ask ourselves this, that have we been enforcing the chapter that deals with integrity effectively when we are getting some of these leaders cleared? So political parties may be culprits, but also the voters have a responsibility here. So now that an election is being declared for Nairobi, I think we should say, what lessons have we learned? Are we putting people in public office who shall respect the rule of law, who shall live to the rule of law, or are we putting in office individuals who have no regard for the rule of law?
And this is across the board, not only the county governments, even the national government.
Even in Parliament.
Yes.
Some of the things that we are seeing in Parliament, it's exactly a reflection of some of the choices that we made. So we are beginning to feel the pain of that. So I think those are lessons that we would be drawing from this, and I think there must be more due diligence by both political parties and by entities that are involved in making sure that Kenya gets, or Kenyans get, the right kind of people to run for office.
We continue with this discussion, but at this point, the interview continues on KTN News. For you who's watching us through or via KTN Home, if you'd like to continue with this, please tune in to KTN News, because the interview continues on KTN News. All right, just still at the back of that, what happened to Mike Sonko at the Senate? That was a political process, because they really faulted the process. It was pure politics. He has gone to court. He's trying to stop the by-election that will happen on the 18th of February next year. Mm-hmm. From where you sit, the fact that he's going to court to contest this, he was impeached through Article 181 of the Constitution. Can he run?
When you look at the criteria of the issues that relate to whether you can run or not in the Constitution, I don't think impeachment is a criteria to block you. There could be other reasons that could come in to block you. But that is precisely the point we are trying to put across.
But I'll stop. Impeachment, you are impeached based on grounds, based on Article 181.
You have grounds, you are impeached. But in the Constitution, there is nothing that says that you have been impeached, so that means that you cannot contest.
The grounds for that impeachment may stop you because some are criminal.
Now, that becomes the issue.
Yes.
Do you get the point? Mm-hmm. The ones that are criminal, if they are being pursued and then he's found to be guilty and culpable, then that would stop him.
How long will that take? Because we're looking at a typical kind of trial in this country.
Now that
at what point will we stop
that we can only leave to the judicial process.
But we know how the judicial process, it takes time.
Well, we want these matters resolved quickly, and I hope that those who know what the issues are will have them resolved justly, fairly, and expeditiously.
Okay. Peter Kenneth ran for president. You have run for president. Peter Kenneth wanted to be the governor of Nairobi County. All things constant, would Musalia Mudavadi consider running for governor of Nairobi County?
No.
Never?
No.
Will your party be fielding a candidate in Nairobi?
Now, that is a different matter.
Your party be fielding?
We are having an engagement on that, so I don't want to make a unilateral decision on that particular issue.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is what we discussed previously, how you got a candidate for Matungu by-election. Yes. In your political journey as Musalia Mudavadi, have you mentored political figures? And who are they?
What is the definition of your mentored political figures now?
When Musalia Mudavadi is no longer at the helm, we will have people who automatically will fill his shoes because we have seen him work with them.
My friend, even in my own constituency, in the last election, I did not contest in the constituency, and Sabatia has got an able member of parliament in the name of Alfred Agoi. So the point I'm trying to put across is that there are so many people I've worked with, there are so many people I've encouraged to enter the political arena, and they are thriving on their own. So if it is in that context, yes.
And they will say, thanks to Musalia Mudavadi, we are in politics.
Oh, yes, yes, there are so many.
Okay, let me take you then now back to the question about fielding a candidate.
Yes.
I'll take you back to the reasons why Mike Sonko was removed, and you have seen the Senate. You have a member of your party at the Senate. If you look at how Ferdinand Waititu was impeached and how Anne Waiguru almost got impeached but got to the Senate, would you compare, would you draw parallels from that?
Well, that is the contradiction of Senate. Okay, there are issues. When it came to Waititu, it was the plenary that dealt with the Waititu. When it came to Anne Waiguru, Senate chose to go into committee. And then, of course, there were accusations left, right, and center of impropriety in the process. So I think when it came to Sonko, the same Senate now became shy in going into committee. They thought that they're better off in the plenary session. So it is, as long as it's within the standing orders that are provided, and you can either go into that committee or you can go through the plenary. This is perfectly within their standing orders.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this one of the gaps that I asked earlier that you, with hindsight now, you think should have been plugged? That discretion that is within Parliament?
Well, I don't know whether one would say that it is a loophole.
The reason why is because they say when it's a committee, it's easier to deal with them. The last committee we had was headed by Honorable Malala. It's easy to deal with it. When it's plenary, it's difficult to deal with all the 60-plus members.
Yes, looking at it simplistically, and if the possible allegation is that maybe some people can be compromised, yes, if you're dealing with 10 people or 5 people, those ones are easier to compromise than when you're dealing with an entire Senate House.
Yes.
That is a fact.
Of 67.
Yeah.
Yes. So in your idea or in your mind, this is not a loophole because it's discretionary granted to the Senate?
It's the Senate. They have that opportunity. So perhaps one of the things that people can look at is, to what extent can you then improve on the rules of procedure and so forth, so that whether you are in committee or whether you're in the entire plenary, you can do it in a manner that this issue of allegations of people being interfered with can be minimized. What can we do? And maybe there are issues that can be done there. So on reflection, yes, you can look at some of those issues and improve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking at the performance of the...
Yes, go ahead. But I keep on coming back to this.
Yes.
What leads people to impeachment or to the thought of impeachment? What are the consequences of what we have seen here? You know, what was the roadmap? Whether it was the Kiambu case, or whether it was the Kirinyaga case, or whether it was the Nairobi case, and so many others. We must keep on asking ourselves, how did you get yourself into this hole called impeachment?
Your party ANC, I wanted to ask about the Senate, but I think it will take our time. Your party ANC is seen to be branding as an economic party, big on the economy. Initially, when the BBI train began taking to the race, you were a little bit, you're not clear on where you stand. But increasingly, we have known where you stand. However, one thing bothers us in terms of the economics of the whole process. The BBI as it is, do you think it's something we need? Because there's this school of thought that we don't have bad laws. only implementers.
I think, let me just clear one thing first. The issue of the BBI and what I thought about it at the beginning. Remember I said that at the inception, and for a long time even after the inception of the BBI process, it was being marketed and projected as an instrument of two people.
I think it still is.
Now, that was what we were talking about. Now, then there was BBI, the first report. I spoke in Bomas, and I made my position very clear, and that was also the ANC's position. It went back into the committee,
yes.
And we did submit proposals at KICC as ANC. It's documented. Then there was the second phase. You might call it Bomas 2. And again in Bomas, Nairobi, as ANC, we assessed the document, and I stood publicly and I indicated at Bomas that there are still gaps that need to be dealt with. I've been very consistent. Thereafter, a series of meetings have taken place. By the time the signatures were being appended at KICC, Ken, I can tell you that document had been amended substantially.
Okay.
All right? And a lot of the contentious issues had been removed. For instance, the whole idea of trying to take away the independence of the IEBC, in Bomas 2, it was in the document. By the time the signatures were being appended at KICC, that had been deleted.
Okay.
Right? So there are issues that we did raise. And some of them, a good number of them, have been dealt with.
Okay.
All right? Now, there are a few others. I may not get 100% of what I desired, because there are others also with their view. But there are concerns that still remain, and there's still room for building further consensus.
So this is not about political expediency?
No. There are some, the intention and some of the issues around BBI are okay. All right? But others are not necessarily.
Same thing we said in 2010.
Yes, but we still voted for it, isn't it? At that time, 70% of Kenyans, or 67% to be precise, gave the 2010 constitution acceptability.
Okay.
The remaining did not accept.
Away from that, you have worked with two people, Barack Muluka and Owalo, and we see where they are right now. And my question is, would you, because you have worked with William Ruto when you were in KNUN with the late President Moi, you have worked with William Ruto when you were the Deputy Prime Minister, would you consider working with William Ruto?
My friend, first of all, I think I have a lot of regard for Barack Muluka and even Eliud Owalo.
Yes.
So I would not want to cast any negative aspersion or anything.
Let me complete my statement.
So I think that is not a fair question.
It's not casting aspersion, but we see where they are. We see they're leaning, and we believe they lean towards the Deputy President. If anything...
if they do that, or if it is happening, it is their choice.
It's their right. But
and
they work with you. Are they leading the way for you?
And that is their right.
But are they leading the way for you?
But in Kenya's political landscape, Ken Mijungu, many people have worked with different people at any one time.
Yes.
All right?
Even the two worked with former Prime Minister.
All of us did.
Yes.
Remember, we were even in the Orange party at one time, all of us?
Yes.
Yeah? Including Ruto, including Raila. How was the Chungwa formed? Referendum.
Yes.
And can you remember the people who were in Chungwa? Literally,
yes.
The president was in the Orange arena. So was Ruto, so was I,
yes.
So was Raila, so was Kalonzo.
Yes.
But when it came to the election, the formations changed.
So my question is,
yes.
Having worked with them, and this is a positive statement, are they leading the way for you?
My friend, that is the most preposterous suggestion.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right? They went there on their own volition.
Yes.
At no point in time would that be happening? Can we stop speculating, and can we move away from rumors?
All right. Today you held a meeting with Kalonzo Musyoka and
Yes.
Moses Wetangula.
Yes.
What was the substance of your meeting?
Basically, Kalonzo invited us because he was having a leaders' meeting in Lower Eastern, and he wanted us to give some perspectives of the national unfolding issues in the national arena. Now, that was their meeting, but he wanted us to be guest speakers, and that is exactly what we did.
That's the capacity you attended that meeting?
Yes, yes.
All right. Going forward, because I need to let you go, NASA, is NASA still alive?
NASA is limping. NASA is limping.
When did it start? Did it after the swearing?
NASA has been limping for quite a while. That's a fact. But NASA exists. It's injured, but it exists. Because for NASA to come to an end, you must have at least 3 constituent parties formally exiting and declaring that they're exiting through the Register of Political Parties. As we speak, not a single constituent party
has left.
All right? Because NASA was it's not easy to deal with this thing, because NASA was a dream come true for a lot of Kenyans. Many millions of Kenyans looked at the NASA agenda. So, frankly, there are a lot of disappointed souls out there. So there's a lot of work to be done from what would be the original NASA constituency to try and rebuild. But mark your word, as much as NASA has got its injuries, but the Jubilee government has also inflicted massive injuries to the people of Kenya. The pain that the economy is going through, whose policies have led to this massive debt situation. These are the facts of the day.
As I let you go, it's a few days to Christmas, perhaps goodwill message, and you know there's a new strain of coronavirus that has been discovered in the UK, and we see people still traveling. Perhaps I let you go with a positive message to Kenyans.
I think on this one I would just tell Kenyans that let's not underestimate the threat of COVID, and particularly during this moment of festivities. We all must restrain ourselves. It's not Christmas as usual. It's not a holiday as usual. And if we are not careful, we could even jeopardize the reopening of schools, because there could be very many super spreader events taking place during this period, and it will eventually hit our children as a nation. So I would really encourage that we be careful. As much as we wish people a good Christmas and a prosperous New Year, we must know that times are hard. And we are going to walk a very difficult economic road.
In 2021 going forward.
Thank you.
Are you by any means faulting what the Ministry of Education has done to insist that the schools will reopen on the 4th of January?
You know, 1 year of a loss to young people is quite a blow. We have seen that some young ladies, young girls, have gone into the family way at this point in time. So clearly, it's a very difficult situation for parents. Yeah. So this is where we must pull together the government through the Ministry of Education, the pupils themselves, the teachers, and the parents must link up with this. More resources, if we prioritize well, will be required to make sure that the school facilities are good and ready to support
learning. A good place to end, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, and that was also a good place for the government to begin, ensuring that infrastructure is in place to ensure that the students are
Absolutely.
safe. Thank you very much for coming to our program tonight, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hope to see you next year.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
And of course, this discussion continues. My panelists are on the other side. Dr. Barak Muluka is joining us shortly, so is Dr. Duncan Ojwang. But we released Musalia Mudavadi. We're coming back. Stay with us.